Debate preparations, which took place in brief sessions over a period of several weeks. Let's bring in Democratic strategist Don Calloway, CEO of Pine Street Strategies, and Republican strategist Lauren Zelk, managing director of FP1 Strategies. With a good Saturday to you both, I'll go to you first, Lauren, on this. So the mention of the presidential debates, you know, that kind of brings to mind the scene of the president towering there behind Hillary Clinton. But what are your expectations for these interview preparations and the significance of the fact that they are on the president's calendar?
I actually think it makes sense that Rudy Giuliani is saying that these are going to be like preparing for a presidential debate. I would suspect they've probably chosen someone to play Mr. Mueller in this scenario. They will go through all the questions that they think may be asked. And, you know, I do have to say, I'm really glad that they're on the calendar, and I'm really glad that he's going to be interviewed by Mr. Mueller. Let's do it. Let's get this investigation where it needs to be. I think this is really good news.
What do you think, Don? What's your take?
The investigation is progressing just fine. No thinking adult should have any feelings whatsoever about the investigation having passed the one-year mark, because thorough and serious investigative matters, particularly of this caliber, take a long time. I just want to place Rudolph Giuliani in his proper context. Rudy Giuliani is not the president's lawyer, and I bristle every time that I hear that. Rudy Giuliani is the latest in a series of carnival barkers who's been sent in front of the world to say all the things to all the cameras. He's almost an extension of the president, because the president does at least have the self-awareness to know that it's a little bit perilous for him to be out there saying some of these things right now. Emmett Thomas Flood and those guys who we don't see in front of the cameras are the real lawyers here. Giuliani is an absolute sideshow. So I don't put a whole lot of credence into what he says. But I guess it's good that he's preparing the president for these interviews, because that's normal legal procedure for any representation.
Well, look, Rudy Giuliani, he has certainly been talking, Lauren. He spoke about all these developments in the approach to the Russia investigation. He did so in about a 40-minute long interview yesterday. Let's take a look at some of the highlights.
You believe that, according to the special counsel and their investigative team, there may be a narrowing of questions. Is that accurate?
Yes, it is. And then they sent us a response. I can't go into detail, but narrowing the subjects for questioning down to about 2. Here's the issue that I really feel strongly about with this informant, if there is one. First of all, I don't know for sure, nor does the president, if there really was one. We're told that. And explain to me why they even need an interview with the president if it isn't to try to trap him into perjury. It's like Martha Stewart. Martha Stewart never would have gone to jail if she hadn't gone and testified. My client is being unfairly prosecuted now. He's being unfairly... No, he's not being prosecuted, and we haven't pointed out he can't be indicted either. He cannot be indicted.
You don't think a president can obstruct justice?
He can, but in the case of firing a subordinate who's going to be replaced by somebody else on an acting basis immediately...
But it's why you fired them. Corrupt intent. That's part of the legal analysis.
It doesn't matter if, in fact, it can't result in anything. The investigation continued.
So you're following all that? I mean, what's your reaction, Lauren?
Well, that was certainly an interesting choice. You know, I have never advised any politician or client that I've worked with to sit down for a 40-minute interview. I don't really understand the strategy behind it, except for to think that maybe, you know, I know the president has successfully kind of utilized tactics of distraction, if you might call them, in the past. But I do think what's interesting is him bringing up the possibility of this informant. I had a look at some of that Washington Post and New York Times reporting on this, and if it happened and if it's true, I actually think that they may have had that informant try to engage with the campaign because of the rise of Paul Manafort within the campaign. Someone that, you know, eyebrows raised in political circles when we saw that Paul Manafort was getting involved in the campaign, and we now know that he had been under investigation by the FBI since 2014. So I suspect that if there was an informant, it was probably because of Manafort.
But there is a difference. I just want to make sure that you see the difference with what the FBI is stating and that which the president has tweeted. Having somebody put into the campaign, a spy, if you will, as he has referred to it, a spy within the campaign, as opposed to an informant speaking with people who may be working within the campaign, but he's not attached to the campaign. There's a difference there, right? So the president's incorrect in his tweet.
Well, yeah, I think, you know, details about this are still developing. I know a lot of it is unconfirmed. It could be that the president was incorrect. But yes, the reporting that I read this morning on it did seem to indicate that the informant approached campaign officials under the guise of offering guidance and, you know, advice to the campaign. That's actually something super normal. Any sort of presidential campaign, people come, they offer advice. Sometimes it's taken, sometimes it's not. So, I think that if they were going to do that, I think that was actually a pretty normal way to go about it. But I do, again, I think that if there was involvement there, I think it was probably because of Paul Manafort.
Okay. Your takeaway from the Giuliani interview, Don, and specifically, what about this part when he says they have sent us a response? He can't go into detail, of course, a response from Mueller's team, narrowing the subjects for questioning down to about 2.
Again, it's just so important that Rudy Giuliani is placed in his proper context here. Rudy Giuliani is a sideshow. I'm not entirely sure, and I've heard from credible sources in D.C. that Rudy Giuliani doesn't know anything. They limit what he knows because he will go out there and mislead folks and just say whatever he say. Rudy Giuliani is the president's direct response to Michael Avenatti putting on a public show of litigating these matters. And it's unfortunate because Michael Avenatti is not averse to the president in this matter. Michael Avenatti is averse to, I don't even know, but Robert Mueller certainly is not someone who can be swayed through Giuliani's attempted manipulation through the president of the media. So I really don't place a whole lot of credence, Alex, in anything that Rudy Giuliani is going out here and saying. It's not clear that he knows what he's talking about, and he's certainly not doing his client any favors as a quote-unquote lawyer in this matter by going out and talk. I don't practice law anymore, but I practice long enough to get this head full of gray hair, and I know that he's doing him no favors. He's going out and misrepresenting every aspect of this case, and it really just makes the president look bad.
Look, we're going to wrap it up on that because it would appear that you and Lauren do agree on the fact that he shouldn't be talking at this length on interviews. Right. Lauren wouldn't advise it. You don't think he should be doing it. So, Dawn and Lauren, thank you very much for your time. We'll see you both again
Alex.
soon. Yep.
Thank you.
Next hour, a full recap of this morning's beautiful wedding ceremony. Prince Harry and the American